Camden and Corey, so many of the drill music videos we found on social media today were simply too graphic to show on the evening news. Mayor Eric Adams said if former President Donald Trump can be removed from Twitter, he certainly believes that many of these violent videos can be removed from social media as well.
All right, fellas. What do we think of the mayor declaring war on drill rap? I think in the past, before not too long ago, we had this whole long discussion surrounding hip hop music, and I think with the recent events, obviously I would like for us to revisit this conversation, especially with the new mayor wanting to censor a particular form of hip hop music. So, thoughts, opinions.
One of the biggest things that you said is wanting to censor, and I think that in itself is going to create a problem. I did like what 504 was saying, though, what he said, it's not the music, killing people, but it's also like when they say guns don't kill people. People, you know what I mean? It's that whole merry-go-round the circus bullshit. So my thing, though, like drill rap been out since like 2010. It started in Chicago.
Yeah.
Because the Chicagoans, is that correct?
I don't know, man. I call them cat Chirac, man.
Chirac.
I just call them cat, and for what it is.
No, because they work with Chiracians. Yeah.
Yeah, I just call them Chiracians.
Chiracians, they were on it like that, and they would use the music as a way of saying, how they would retaliate. And then, it started making money. So the part that it makes money is going to be the part where it's going to be harder to shut down. And you're still talking about censoring, and you're talking about censoring a certain type, there's still other music that is just as bad. At the end of the day, I think he's going to have a big, big problem with that, just the censoring, because people are going to still talk about freedom of speech. Is it up to the rappers to do better content, have better content? Yeah. But I saw you said that he had, he works for Jay-Z. His son worked for Jay-Z.
Yeah.
And he was using them. But like even with Jay-Z, he got into like I think it was about his sixth album, where he had to go back and basically do the American Gangster thing because people weren't buying his music the way that they were originally when he was talking about, drugs, guns, and violence and shit. When he started talking a little bit differently, people started gravitating away from him. So I don't know. It's that double-edged shit. I know that the mayor, with that illegal age prosecution and shit and the bail reform, I think that does need to be looked into. And I disagree with all the civil rights advocates that's saying it'll just affect minorities. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, you don't have a son, Cash, but nobody's telling your son to go out with this gun out. Like at the end, that's, you know what I mean? Come on.
Well, first off, I can't even say I'm for it or against it, because I don't think you can stop niggas from rapping about what they want to rap about. But let's just say that they did. Is that going to stop the niggas from killing each other? Because to me, it just seemed like I'm just dissing you on a track. Like if I got beef with you, I'm going to come after you one way or another. The fact that I can't say it on wax, that's what's going to stop me from killing you? I mean, if that's what they're saying, then okay. But I don't really think that that's really going to, I don't think that's going to stop niggas from going out and shooting their enemy. So, I don't know.
Stop that part, yeah. How does it stop? How does the music stop that gun part? You know what I mean?
Black Zeus, what you got?
I think they got it backwards. I mean, I agree that with the idea of, reforming the gun laws to, lower the age of, making these decisions depending on what they're talking about. If they're talking about like, okay, you're, 15, 16 years old, you know what guns do. You had intent of killing somebody, you will be trialed as an adult. I'm all for it. I'm all for that. If that's what it is, if that's what they're talking about reforming the law, but I think they're taking at it the wrong position. They're looking at as the music as the cause instead of the music being the effect. Everybody that knows anything about hip hop, if you go back to the origins of hip hop, if you go back to where all this really started from, as far as like the guns and the violence and drugs, you can't deny this shit came from NWA. And NWA came from an environment that was involved with gangs and drugs and this, that, and the other. So they're simply reflecting what their reality was. Once their reality changed, you look at Ice Cube, you look at Dr. Dre today, they're not reflecting that same type of story. And the whole thing is most of these kids are just still living that story. So the whole thing is they're going that music is reflecting their story. And the whole thing is those that are relating to it, are going to take it to the next level. Those that are just like, oh, it's just music, ain't doing shit. They not the ones that's causing trouble. They could bob their heads to it. They could know every lyric, every rhyme. We all have some song, that we all like, oh, this my shit, but at the end of the day, it's just a song to us. But somebody else, it's a reality to them. So until you actually deal with the root, which is poverty and ignorance, you're never going to solve the gun problem. You're never going to solve the drug problem in the community. This is why bullshit like Kamala Harris is the first Black vice president, female vice president, or such and such is going to be the first Black female Supreme Court justice. It's like, how does that help the root? That's the elite. How does that help the root of Black people's problems?
That's the transcendent. Let's stick to Mr. Eugene Robinson words for those folks. The transcendent.
The transcendent. There you go.
I have a different take. I think imagery is everything. Imagery definitely is influential, because one of the things that, to your point, Smith, like drill rap has been around since the early 2010s, maybe early 2000s in regards of underground hip hop music. I think the problem with drill rap is the over the top disrespectfulness. If you take some time to really dive deep into drill rap music, not only they would specifically call out the deceased or a group of people, but it's just like the reporter said, it's just like, you go into people's grave sites, you're videotaping you pissing on someone's gravesite who recently passed away. If you were to just censor that imagery, it might help. It might help in a sense of, not fostering or not continuing this sort of vicious, repetitive cycle that's out there. I get what, yes, you got to tackle the issue within the community. But, man, I think I think a lot of times with people in our age demographic, when we talk about, it comes down to the home. I get that. But when we have to really look at it, a lot of these kids come from, especially inner city kids, they live in, single parent homes, mostly single mother homes. And they're looking at their peers as their role models to some regards. And I think that a lot of times it's misguided. So if you could curtail the negative frequency in regards of how they're kind of communicating with each other and what they're saying on record, it could help a little bit, man. It's just like there's a reason why China, and I shared this story not too long ago. There's a reason why China basically banned hip hop. Yo, we don't want our kids, our youth to be influenced by this shit. It's just like, we just don't. We're gonna just, similar to like how they banned TikTok. It's just like, yo, we're not gonna, have our kid or certain aspects of TikTok. Like, we're not gonna have our kids be influenced by this stuff because they understand the importance, or I mean, not the importance, but they understand the impact that these sort of imagery and these sort of lyrics have on a society and a group of people. I get,
the problem still becomes, though, this is America and people have freedom of speech. And
you're right.
No, but if you're saying that my video is moving you to violence, then what about this same movie that I can pit up against my video?
But there's a difference.
Is there a difference?
Yeah, because in the drill rap. Oh, go ahead, Black Zeus. Go ahead.
No, all I was saying was the fact that in the movie, it's understood that this is a fictional character, a fictional story.
Correct.
Is
These
it
rappers
though?
are saying that
Hold on,
this
let
is
him
their
finish.
real
Yeah.
life.
No,
Yeah.
but I'm saying, is it considered to be fictional because people do copycat off movies the same way
Yeah,
that
people
we're
do
saying that
copycat off movies,
copycat
like
off of
the guy that shoot up the
that
movie
people
theater thinking that
copycat.
he was the Joker going up against Batman. But we all recognize that he's crazy. But the whole thing is that these rappers are saying that this is their true life story, and they're doing this on
record.
on a real person's grave.
Yeah.
And I hear that, but I'm saying you also have. I'm gonna go back to American Gangster, which was a movie that was very violent. It had a lot of things, and it was based off of a true story, also. So what I'm saying is the life again imitating the art, or is the art imitating life? Like, which one is it? Because at the end of the day, if I can show a video and I can show a movie that's showing the same thing equally, and you're telling me that a 13-year-old is supposed to decipher that this movie is not real, but this music is real. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, I think the only difference with that one, I'm just using Cass as example.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if it's a movie, I'm pissing on like a fictional grave. If it's the video, nigga, you're pissing on my actual grandmother's grave. So, like, I can decipher the two, but like, nigga, you're disrespecting me.
Based off of a true story, and you see somebody pissing on a grave in the movie, that is still based off a true story, so you know that this actually happened.
Like, if it's somebody who's,
if
it's like my grandfather's grave, I mean, if it touches me personally, then that's different as if it's just like, well, I see that there's a fictional grave here. Like, I can just tell you get what I'm saying? One's like personal.
I get it.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying we're still talking about the minds of kids, because if you're saying that this is only you only want to talk to social media executives, I don't think that's the way. You know what I mean? I personally don't think that, I could take it off the gram, but I could put it online. So it's not just about a social media, if you're not.
Well, I think that's what, like, it's definitely not just social media. They're going to try to censor this.
Censoring the content, like you said before, like how China censors content. If you're not going to fully censor all the content, then just saying that you're going to these social media platforms, I don't see that happening. And I see a lot of pushback coming because of the freedom of speech.
Well, Eric Adams,
it's a tricky one though. When
go ahead.
Freedom of speech, you're allowed to essentially the idea of freedom of speech is say, hey, in a public forum, you're allowed to say what you want to say, but it's not things like TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. These are not public squares. These are private corporations that own these. So if they say that's a no, you can't say your freedom of speech has been squelched,
violated. Yep.
No,
but the fact that this is not your public square. This is a private. It's like going into Newark Symphony Hall and saying, I want to go in there and tell everybody what I feel, but you don't own the spot.
And that's why I'm saying that content can still be on the internet, though. That's what I'm saying, though.
Sure, that content could be on the internet.
I don't have to own the social media. I don't have to own the TikTok, but I can still have the same content on a different platform that has nothing.
Absolutely, but the whole thing is, if all the platforms take responsibility,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You can't just look at.
You have to go to an extra length to create your own platform just so you can show people that you're pissing on graves. And who's going to go through all the trouble of trying to find your platform? That would be a very few fringe minority that would be looking for your content versus something like TikTok or Instagram, any of this stuff where it's on your feed and it's being fed to you. And once you like one thing, the algorithm picks up on it and keep feeding it to you like a drug.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think the one thing that I love what Eric Adams has to say is, if you could remove Donald Trump for words that basically incited January 6th, then come on, you could remove this shit. Like, and there's an obligation to remove this shit at this point, because it's actually impacting, real people's lives. And I yes, it's a fine line in regards of the whole freedom of speech, but I just think that, when you really, and I'm going to get into further stories about
I don't think it's impacting the right people's lives, so it's going to, remain.
it is impacting people's lives because like it goes deep.
What I said though, I said the right people's lives. I didn't say people. I agree with you, but I don't think the right people's lives. So therefore, that Trump thing impacted the right people's lives. That's why they got him taken off. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay, I see what you're talking about. Yeah. But yeah, man. But ultimately, like, where do you see hip hop? Like, this is like the last question. I'll move on. Like, so, like, the state of hip hop today. We've talked about this before. Like, should there just be a complete reversal, removal? Like, what do you think hip hop is in its state today? Like, what should happen? Kelvin,
I think.
go ahead.
I'm about to jump in. That shit is it's just different than what we're used to. I mean, you've always had beef with people killing each other in hip hop. I don't want to say always. I mean, for me, it may have been earlier, but for me, the first time that I really, was cognizant of it was with Biggie and Tupac. So I'm gonna say since the 90s. I mean, I don't know if it's been since before then, so at least the last 20, 30 something years. So like, I just think it's just different than what we're used to. I don't feel like, I do feel like this generation, the kids are different, but I don't really feel like it reflects in the music to the point of they're any worse than how it used to be.
Okay.
I'm not talking about quality. I'm just talking about like, the content or the results of, of the music.
No, that's fair because, and on top of that, you're an educator, so you get to see firsthand a multitude of kids on a daily basis. You and Smith, so you kind of engage with them and see what's happening on the ground. Fellas, what do you think about the state of hip hop, its responsibility to the community, and all that stuff?
So, I started hip hop back in the 80s, with Grandmaster Flash and Slick Rick and everything, and hearing,
Damn, you a dinosaur. Go ahead, brother.
Shut up, man. Anyway, the whole thing is, it's like, that was when, music it was a way to reflect or to express what was going on in the community, what was going on in the lives of the people and everything. And it had a powerful effect that, amalgamated Black people, in this, that live in the same community. It didn't matter whether you were Jamaican, Haitian, African American, Nigerian, this, that, and the other. Everyone could relate to the music then. And then down the line, it grew into something different. I mean, we were at a certain point where we went from freaking white lines, and to like what's the song called? Self-Destruction. And we were pulling together as a people. Rappers, music, hip hop was pulling us together as a people. And then, like I said, the transition with the NWA was something completely different. And it was a fringe, it was kind of a fringe where it was like, okay, you've heard the community speak about their issues and this, that, and the other. And now you were hearing it from the other side of the tracks, the drug dealers, the dope boys, the gangbangers, this, that, and the other. And people were like, oh, well, and at the end of the day, the people bought it. The people listened to it. They bought it, this, that, and the other. And at the end of the day, the market decides. Yeah. If you put something out and the market says, no, we don't want that, we don't buy it, we don't believe in it, we don't feel it, whatever the case is, no matter how much you try to sell it, it's not gonna sell. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, is that the flames can only get, can only rise if you give it oxygen. And that's where the community has to take responsibility. That's the only way, is self-empowerment through the community. The community has to say, listen, these are our kids. We're not going to allow them to be influenced or manipulated by this bullshit. We especially the older community who has seen the transition, who's gone through it and seen what's happened to friends, neighbors, family members over the years with violence in the neighborhoods, with drugs in the neighborhoods, with teenage pregnancy and all these other things, kids young boys getting killed and locked up, this, that, and the other. The only way we're going to make a change is if we actively take responsibility for it. And we say, no, we're not buying that bullshit. That's just going to stay on the show. You know, you're going to go out like, you know, you can make all the bad, crappy music you want. But as far as like, has it gotten any better or worse? Fuck yeah, it's gotten worse. Fuck yeah, it's gotten worse. You know, this is what we're doing. That kids are going and pissing on people's graves. Like that used to be like that. At least, hey, you had an enemy, he was dead and gone, and that was the end of it. Now you got to go to the next level of pissing on his grave. What are you gonna do? Now you're gonna go and piss on his mama when he's dead or something? Like, well, come on, now,
bro? The drill rap. I spent like sometimes watching some of these drill rap music content, and yeah, the level of disrespect, it's unfounded on some real shit. But Smith, wrap this up, bro. Last thoughts.
Most of that just on the I think most of that drill rap though is just on the more of shock rap.
Okay, shock value type of shit. Yeah.
Type of shit. You know what I mean? What could I do to make people say, "Oh, that's fucked up"?
That's true.
I think it's just more of that line.
Yeah.
Two main things though, like you got to remember with the producing of this stuff. So yeah, NWA came out and they started changing the narrative, but then a lot of other artists weren't allowed to be themselves. If they weren't going to take on the moniker of NWA, then they wasn't going to get played. They wasn't going to be out there. So the industry also manipulates this shit also. It's like, y'all like that? Then we're going to make it like that. You know what I mean? They do.
The Roots, Conscious.
No, I'm not saying, nope. I didn't say there was no conscious rappers. That's not what I said. Okay. I said that is not what I said at all. I said industry pushes the narrative towards what is being sold and what they want to sell more. So if I am the Roots, a conscious rapper, I'm not going to get that play. It's going to be harder for me to get on because they want me to take on what was selling the NWA. They want me to be a disrespectful rapper. So I'm not saying that those conscious rappers don't get played, but you got to not... The music doesn't get made, but think about this. On the radio, who are they playing? You know what I mean? And they're going to keep saying, well, that's what the people want to hear. Not necessarily. That's what you all are pushing. You are pushing a certain narrative because you can change and put something else on. You know what I mean? I always have the conversation with elders about hip-hop when they say there are no conscious rappers, and I'm saying, no, you just don't hear those rappers. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's still a part that the industry plays. It's not just set up on the people. Yeah. You know what I mean? The people are going to buy what they're exposed to. If you keep exposing motherfuckers to dollar burgers, then that's what they're going to buy.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Like, and we could go on for a hot minute to constantly talk about hip hop, but let's transition. All right, next story. This is from CNBC. Black Americans lack participation in the stock market, likely to widen post-pandemic wealth gap. Thanks to historic stock market rebound from pandemic lows, affluent 401k holders and savvy investors in the U.S. enjoyed double-digit returns from the stocks over the past 2 years, but not for the majority of Black Americans.
32%, baby.
Only 34% of Black American households own equity investment as compared to 61% of white families, according to Federal Reserve Board most recent survey in 2019. The average value of stocks Black Americans own amounted only to $14,400, nearly a quarter of their white peers held, the data said. Because Black households are less likely to be invested in the stock market, only every less likely to be engaged in the financial system. They not only entered the pandemic with large gaps, the likelihood is that we are going to see some of these gaps widening coming out of the pandemic, says John Lettery, the Economic Innovation Group's president CEO. The primary way that Americans build wealth and invest is through retirement plans, and there have been enormous disparities between Black and white Americans on that front. Many Black Americans missed out on the hefty gains from the stock market because they often hold occupations where employers are unlikely to offer an employer-sponsored retirement plan. Last point, only 44% of Black Americans have retirement savings accounts with a typical balance around $20,000. compared to 65% of white Americans who have an average balance of $50,000, according to the Federal Reserve. I would love some other demographic of people. God damn it, why is it always black and white? But go ahead.
Because it's easier to separate you that way.
Yeah, that's what it's based on.
We're not going. We're not going to admit the truth is that per capita, the Asian man is the richest man in America. We're not going to say that, even though it's factual that the Asian man.
The richest man. Hold on. Wait. He's the richest man in America.
Yep.
I think by ethnic groups, I think Asian communities by and large hold more wealth. And I think, or they have higher earning income jobs. But either way, continue.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing is Asian communities push their kids towards the sciences, the technologies, the STEM. So the whole thing is where the biggest money is, whether you're talking corporate New York or you're talking Silicon Valley, is the Asians. They are making the per capita, they make the biggest paychecks. But we're not going to talk about that. We're just going to keep putting it on white America, black, white and black, because we're not going to acknowledge that the Asians make the most money. We're not going to acknowledge that, the Spanish vote is a major vote in America, ergo why, the Spanish people were getting that $450,000 reparation for separation at the border. But we're not going to talk about that. We're just going to still keep on black and white so that, you can sit there and fight each other all goddamn day. And notice what he said, the fact that the people are making 50,000 versus the ones that has 20,000 in their 401k. Now, if they're somewhere around their 30s and 40s and they only got 20,000 to 50,000, that's because they're probably not high earners in the first place, or they haven't been investing long. So they're probably right around the average American who is making anywhere between $40,000 a year and $50,000 a year and just getting by. Truth is, the average American, white or black, has more in common with each other than they know. But it's easier to, incite riots and separate you, whether you're talking about, Proud Boys or black BLM, and this, that, and the other, because at the end of the day, the corporate elites, the, one percenters or whatever you want to call them, don't give a fuck about none of that shit. They got stability, they got security. You sit there and fight each other over skin color.
Yeah. Well,
so hold up real quick though, but what do you make of the lack of participation in the stock market though? I didn't get that from you.
Two basic points. Point one is I'll admit there's a lack of knowledge and understanding.
Bingo.
And point two is the fact of there's a skepticism.
Okay.
Because I've had these conversations with friends of mine where I talked to them about invested money into the stock market, because they're like, okay, well, I don't have a lot of money. This time, you could start off with $20, dude, investing in the stock market. That's a lower grade of entry versus like buying property or investing in anything larger. Like you can easily get into the stock market. Yeah. And then secondly, I always tell Black Americans, friends of mine, this, that, and the other, you got kids, you got to get fucking life insurance. You got to fucking do it. And don't be cheap about it. Get $1 million coverage, because that $1 million coverage, if something should fucking happen to you, your kids will get $1 million fucking dollars tax motherfucking free. And that's how you start building generational wealth.
Yeah.
But
go ahead, Smith. Good jump in.
Well,
Henry. It doesn't matter.
That's how you build generational wealth, possibly, if it is taught and instilled. If it is taught into the kids that you're leaving that with, then you can possibly build wealth. If that is not taught and you just leaving money with some precarious kids that's going to end up blowing that shit on Jordans and fucking red bottoms, then that shit's going to mean nothing. That's my first point. I think what you said about the knowledge and the skepticism are two main foes. And it's because of the lack of knowledge that they become skeptics. Part of that is because a lot of that knowledge has never been taught in our communities. There are no training programs. Money is talked about never in most Black communities and most Black households. Money
Hold
is.
up. So when
Let him finish his
sorry
thought.
about this.
Yeah, let him finish his thought. Go ahead, Smith.
Yeah, I'm still talking about as a majority that is not spoken about as far as investing, as far as saving. So if you had to save $20 and I can take $20 and put it somewhere, if I'm not aware or if I again don't have the knowledge of what this can do for me, then I am going to be skeptic of putting my $20 there. If grandma has taught me to put my money under the mattress, which is the dumbest thing possible because fire comes and you fucking lose everything, but you got to understand that people's knowledge of money is not the same. So a lot of this, for one part, and investing, it's the lack of knowledge. You know what I mean? And that brings forth that skepticism that you said. If I'm not aware and I'm not sure, and yes, I can go and start learning now, but you got to remember a lot of this damage was done. You know what I mean? It wasn't like we didn't have Black Wall Streets and was investing in the damn communities and having our money turn over 10 times before it left the block. But we got to get back to that, and that shit takes time. You know what I mean?
Let Henry chime in real quick, and I know you got some questions, Black Zeus. Henry, go ahead.
Yeah,
buddy.
I think the biggest thing, like Smith said, is just the knowledge. It was like I wasn't taught that in school growing up. They are doing a little bit of, they're doing a better job of it now. How high of a quality it is, that's to be said. But the biggest thing really is just we haven't had that knowledge. Because if somebody had told me, and I'm speaking, from personal experience, I kind of caught on late in the game. Somebody had told me I had to save $100 a month from the time I'm 18 to the time I retire, and I'd be close to $1 million. I would have did it.
Mm-hmm.
So just having that knowledge is really the biggest thing.
Yeah,
and that's the reason why. That was it.
Black Zeus, you go ahead. I have some thoughts, but go ahead.
I totally agree with what they're saying.
I don't know. I got some pushback. For me, as someone who consumed a lot of TV in my adolescent years, I remember just watching it. Like it comes down to an accountability thing. I just remember watching TV shows that did talk about Wall Street and did talk about the stock market. And I felt like as I transitioned into adulthood, these are the things that I needed to do to obtain wealth. Like I knew my mom, she had significant pitfalls, and I knew I wasn't going to be given a silver spoon in my mouth to basically close this sort of wealth gap that's out there. But I knew that, there still shouldn't be any excuses for my participation, whether it be real estate investment or in the stock market. And one of the things that I know I've had conversation with Black Zeus about is when you got grown ass people into their late 20s and 30s and they're not doing much of anything at all, like just nothing. Like the stock market has been there. Real estate investment has always been around. And it's just like when I hear these sort of conversations about Black wealth, I get needing to be taught, but like unless you're walking around deaf, dumb, and blind, like I just don't understand how you're just missing these opportunities. It's one thing if you don't have the infused capital to invest a lot of money, that I'm sympathetic to. I understand, like, you're not going to have a boatload of money to like, turn over and flip 4 times over and you become an instant millionaire. I understand that, but like to at least start as early as possible so that your kids can have something. I don't know, man.
I still think that has to be taught. I agree. I don't know what shows you were watching that you saw stock market.
Like I watched the movie Boiler Room. I watched.
I don't know what you were watching, but they wasn't talking about that on the Cosby Show. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, your experience is still different, and everybody's going to have a different experience.
Well, the Cosby Show touched on financial literacy a little bit. Now, it didn't touch on.
It didn't talk about investing money and stuff.
No, that's what I'm saying. It didn't talk, but what?
No, wait, stop. We're talking about investing and why people aren't investing. You said that you saw shows that dealt with stock markets. That's what you said.
Correct. Trading places. with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. That was the stock market. That was a famous movie. Every black community, for the most part, have watched that film.
That was a movie, right? I get it. That was a movie. I thought you said TV shows, but you're saying movie now. And I want you to understand this. I want you to understand this. You watch that movie with a different lens. You understand? So still, your lens is not the lens of Black Zeus. It's not the lens of Henry's. It's not my lens. You know what I mean? I could have went in there with the sole aspect of this is going to be Eddie Murphy, and I'm coming in here to fucking laugh my ass off. Not coming in here to figure out what's going on with the stocks of the movie. You understand what I'm saying? Like,
but hold up, but like, don't we all watch stuff and try to see if there's a message in it at some point?
Maybe now. But what I'm saying is, as a young, you said you picked this up young, and I'm saying that the majority of our youngsters aren't picking those things up as youth. The majority, look, I put it to you like this. I tell my students this: they're still being consumers. They're not being producers. So even with their social media content, they'd rather watch somebody else's content that has been created than to create their own. You understand? And create their own content, they can create some wealth for themselves. But it's easier for them to watch someone else. You know what I mean? And now with this is different nowadays because at your fingertips you can find out information. But back then it wasn't. When you just had that cable box, it wasn't like that. Though. I don't think.
Yeah. I'd agree with Smith. And I mean, most of the movies that I watched wasn't really for educational purposes, unless I'm watching some type of documentary. So even if I watch Trading Places, it's still like, okay, I see that this happened here and this happened there, and the dude invested. I haven't seen the movie, so I'm just, paraphrasing, but I'm not taking
You've never seen Trading Places.
See what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to tell you, guys.
But that's what I'm saying, like I'm not. So there's no movie that I can remember watching that's made me go, like, I've never watched a movie about niggas who was lawyers and be like, damn, I really want to be a lawyer. Or a movie about a dude who was like the Wolf of Wall Street. He's like, damn, I really want to work in corporate America. Now, I might watch documentaries as an older person, but at the end of the day, my mom didn't know anything about the stock market. And in return, I didn't know anything about it either, to the sense of, and again, I can just speak personally. I always knew that you should invest in the stock market. So I did. I just didn't know how much. I didn't know how frequently. I invested each month. Come to find out, I wasn't putting in enough. Once I found that, I started putting in more. What I'm saying is, had I had that same information from the time that I was 18, 17, or even when I graduated in college, I would have acted accordingly. And that's not to say that I blew any money. I didn't.
It's different when you're getting when you're getting stocks for Christmas and you're told about this money. It's different when you're getting mutual funds, when you're getting CDs and shit like that, and you're in a family that understands money a little differently, and they're teaching you that from a young age. That's a lot different than just supposed to be walking into an understanding of how to deal. Most people in our community, again, were told, either you put it under the bed or you put it in the bank. Not that you take that money and let it reinvest.
They don't even put it in a bank, bro.
No, but I'm saying in our community back in the days, most was either told to put it in their bed or put it under the bank. Never with the expectation of investing that money, though. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm just saying, like, there's studies that show they don't even put it in the bank.
I understand that. All
right, Black Zeus, chime in, brother. My bad. My brother. Go ahead, brother.
I agree and disagree with all of you. So I agree with the fact of, I agree with Cash where stocks are something that, most of us heard of if you ever watched the news. I don't think I've ever seen a news report where they didn't talk about what happened in the stock market that day. I remember growing up, my dad used to listen to 1010 Wins every morning, and they would always run over what's ever going on in the world. And they would always tell you what's going on in the stock market. And I was always wondering what it was, but I never fully understood. And, and I always saw it in the news. I never fully understood what it was at the time. Now, as far as, education, I agree with Smith. I grew up with my parents, always said you put this much money into your bank, into your savings account. This one goes into your checking to pay your bills. And then you put a little bit of cash in the house just in case of emergencies. Like we used to stash cash in like coat pockets, in a book, this, that, and the other, in case of emergencies. You had a little cash stash around the house and everything. So I agree with Smith on that sense. Later on in life, when I started to hear more about the stock market thing, I always saw it with, what I thought was rich white people, and I associated the stock market with rich white people. I didn't think it was something I could get into because I'm black and because of the neighborhood I'm in. I didn't see anybody in my neighborhood who was in the stock market. I didn't know anybody who was in the stock market. So I had no idea what the barrier of entry was. I didn't know it was as simple as going to your bank and talking to them about it, this, that, and the other. My first idea of investment was my dad telling me about CDs, putting money into CDs. My dad invested into CDs that had a better interest, better rate of interest back then than it does now. And, so I grew up learning about that. It wasn't till about my third year of college that a counselor, a white guy, we were talking about, paying for college, this, that, and the other, and futures and blah, blah, blah. And I was telling him, I have CDs, this, that. He's like, CDs? Why don't you invest in the stock market? And he started running down compound interest and this, that, and the other. And I was like, is that easy to do it? And he's like, yeah, it's just that easy, And the whole thing is, that's when I started, not knowing, like Kel, how much to put into it. So I only put a little bit into it at the time. And putting a little bit into it, it wasn't until much later in life where I was making a really good amount of money, and taxes were fucking me over. Mm-hmm. And my accountant said, you need to open up a Roth a traditional IRA. So I opened up a traditional IRA to offset my taxes. And then I started investing into, my retirement and this, that, and the other. And then later on, I grew that into something else, and then I opened, switched it to a Roth and blah, 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 and, 2008 happened, and, that opened up opportunities for me. That's when I started my business, was 2008. That's when, and once again, I didn't think I could start a business. I was a producer. I was a consumer, like Hakeem said, and not a producer. It wasn't until one of my managers and the general manager at the gym I worked at told me, why don't you start your own business? And I'm like, start my own business? I don't have money. I don't have a building. He's like, dude, starting your own business is a piece of paper in an office somewhere in the state. That's it. That's all starting your business is. And he was the one that told me to start my own business. If he had not told me that, I would have never thought of that. So then next thing you know, I started my own business, and I, the like Hakeem said, instead of becoming a consumer, I became a producer. Now I have a YouTube channel. Now I have an Instagram with over 1,000 followers. Now I have a gym that has 2,000 square feet of equipment, this, that, and the other. Now I have a home gym where I train people from home online. But the whole thing is, this was a process I had to go through. Now,
and that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Here's where I do fault black people. When somebody like myself, who's gone through the process and knows what it is and says that it's possible, and then when I come to you as a friend or as a relative, whatever the case is, and say, yo, you should get on, you should do this, this is possible, and you give me every excuse in the world, now it is no longer, it's no longer anybody else's responsibility but yours. So there is a twofold. There is a bit of knowledge you have to have, and this, that, and the other, and there's a bit of skepticism. But at the same token, when you see black people that that are, especially nowadays, that are investing, they have 403Bs, they have 401Ks, they have IRAs, they have this, that, and the other, and they are telling you should do the same. If you don't follow through, that's on you.
Go ahead, Henry.
Just listening to Schubert's whole rundown of how he came to be this amazing fucking trainer. Not once did you say like your parents were the one who gave you any information about that stock market. So like your timeline.
No, I didn't.
You missed one part.
I said my first investment was from my dad.
Was a CD, yeah.
And that he was listening to and went in the car. It was a radio, and I was going to push back and say, well, everybody didn't have that dad that was listening to that news station. So, experience again is different, man. That's not.
Was also
let Henry finish his thoughts. Go, fellas. Let Henry finish his thoughts.
And like to just kind of piggyback, I was familiar with the with CDs as well. But all I'm saying is, Schubert, you're saying that you had a conversation with somebody in college, your guidance counselor. You had a conversation with so and so. Never once was it, I got this at home. I didn't get this entire thing at home. I got, okay, we understand the CD, but the CDs are trash. And I don't want to say they're basically obsolete, but that's not how you're building real wealth. And the conversations that you had, Schubert, was the same exact ones that I had. It was just that, it was at two different points in our life.
So hold up. Well, I want to push back though, because at the time in which Schubert was probably getting investment advice on CDs at such a young, early age, CDs rates was probably closer to 10%. So they weren't trash. They were actually looked at as good investments strategies to have. So that's completely different. You can't necessarily CDs now. You're looking at it in today's lens and looking at CD rates now. But if you look at CD rates back in the early 90s, late 80s, CD rates was considered one of the best investment strategies to have.
It still wasn't making you wealthy though.
It was, but if you look at the key word that Schubert is holding on to is compound interest. So the way compound interest work, yes, it does help significantly if you were invested in a CD, and it was part of a portfolio for a lot of financial advisors back in the day. So continue, Kelvin.
So I mean, even so, and then I think to Schubert's other point, where he's saying, you have all of these friends who have the conversations. I don't remember having any conversations with any of my friends, in college, or really until we got maybe till our late 20s, early 30s, about you should be investing in this. This is what I'm invested in, not even necessarily giving me the specific stocks, but are you invested in the stock market? I think the extent to the conversation that I've ever had with any of my friends is, you should be saving. And one of my friends just saying, I'll save when I get older. So we didn't have them types of conversations.
Yeah, those conversations.
And that's what I'm saying is the fact of that is my whole point. My point is the fact of we should be having those conversations. And the whole thing is the problem in the Black community is the fact of if I'm not doing well, I want nobody else to do well. It's the crab in a bucket thing. And the thing is, it's listen, if you heard it from another brother that's doing well, or you see another brother doing well, talk to him. Hey, bro, how'd you get there? What are you doing, this, that, and the other? Right now, I'm in the process of learning about people getting in that have gotten their degrees in economics, in math, science, technology, in law, this, that, and the other. I just had a conversation with Brad the other day about his background and how he got that, so that I can have that conversation with my son when he wants to go to college, because the fact of I have to have that, I don't have that background. I don't have that knowledge. So I go out and look for it so I can help my son to do better than I did. You know what I mean? To get
that's the problem, Schubert.
Is that in the community we need to have these conversations. We need to start bringing, start bringing Black professionals to schools and saying, "Hey, this is my career path. This is what I did. This is what I've accomplished." We need to start bringing Black business owners, Black bankers, this, that, and the other, to communities, into the schools and this, that, and start the conversation.
All right, I want to share one more story, and because this is almost in relation, and then we could continue because it's similar. It's a similar story, and we could continue. So this is another article CNBC produced. Well, hold on, let me just play this video, and then because it's related. So this is from CNBC. Black spending power reaches a record 1.6 trillion, but net worth falls. Black spending powers reached 1.6 trillion in 2021, although the group's network declined by 14%. This is a quick
now for our Equity and Opportunity
video
series, and Frank Holland joins us this morning with a closer look at the growth in Black spending power. Frank.
Hey, good morning to you, Andrew. Black spending power reached a record $1.6 trillion in 2021. The ability to buy, save, and invest more than doubling since 2000. That growth exceeding the full U.S. economy, but actually lagging other ethnic groups. Latinos with a 288% increase, Asians with a 388% increase in spending power. However, other groups, they've also seen an increase in their net worth. Black Americans instead have seen their wealth actually fall by 14%. And with the S&P gaining 27% last year, the value of U.S. homes increasing by 31% last year. Many Black leaders are asking the Black community to really rethink how it spends.
Save money to purchase the most important asset you'll probably ever own, and that's your home. And that to me is equally important. As I said, I put it right up there with arguing or campaigning for or supporting voting rights.
I would love to see us spend more money in the stock market. Instead of buying the hottest new thing, buy the stock of the hottest new thing. And that's something that you can also pass down generation to generation.
Home ownership is typically the biggest wealth builder in the Black community. That's actually fallen more than 3% since 2000. And annually, Black families accumulate $300 billion less in wealth than white families, and they save $75 billion less. The racial wealth gap now at more than $11 trillion. Back over to you.
All right. What you want to say, Smith? Add on to what you have to say.
I just wanted to say, so like I said, with the whole freedom of speech, if the drill rap becomes the stock investment rap, there goes the problem. We have a solution, don't we? But
true, I've heard lyrics from Lupe Fiasco to talk about the stock market.
I heard him too, but the stock market rap is not going to be pushed like the drill rap is.
But I don't look towards hip hop to make me make sound decisions in my life.
I'm not looking not to make sound decisions, but if you're telling me that in one breath, I'm talking about death and desecrating fucking family plots and shit. And people are doing that, they're following that and doing it. That's what they're saying.
You're talking about the influence. I got you. No, you're right. You're right.
But the stock market, wouldn't it influence them to do that? No, that's
no. I see what you're coming from.
The power of persuasion, then wouldn't it persuade them to invest their money? Yeah. Or are we just saying that it only works when it's
violence? I got you. I'm
going to have to give you some pushback on that.
Hey,
because Taylor Swift, Slipknot, Marilyn Manson, Linkin Park, none of this, you tell me the white artist that's putting stock market into their music.
And how many of them got stocks for their first birthday, we're not.
We're not. That's exactly what I was gonna say.
We are though. We are, bro. But we are because that goes into it.
Not in their music.
Listen. That misses the mark totally, Black Zeus. That's
exactly your point.
That is not my point. That misses the mark.
Your point was drill rap. If you're seeing drill rap, the influence is the violence, right?
That's what you all said. You all said because of the rap songs, this is why they're
Are you the whole thing?
I'm not agreeing with that. That's what you all are saying based off this conversation that we're having. And I'm saying, if you saying that this is happening with this drill rap and it's making people go piss on plots, what I'm saying is if you change the narrative and the language, wouldn't it have these same people persuade them to invest in stocks? No?
It could be influential. I won't deny that.
Right.
I won't deny it. Could be.
So it only could be influential when it's with violence?
Yeah, it could be influential. To what degree, I don't know, but it could definitely be influential.
I'm just giving an idea to change the narrative. I'm giving a
I get what you're saying.
You're trying to give me more problems, Black Zeus. I'm giving you
what I'm saying is it's not consistent because the fact of if you're saying that white America is doing all this, 60% of white America is doing this investment, but the whole thing is you see 0% of white America's music reflecting anything about economic or financial literacy. How do you correlate the
white America's music to know that? So I'm not going to blanket statement that.
Okay.
And I also know that if I listen to grunge and hardcore, because I went to a white college for this reason, hardcore rock, that I'm getting violent lyrics in these songs also.
But let's stick to the financial part of it, though.
The financial part, I'm trying to
shit, you know what I mean? So,
but let's stick to the financial stuff. The
finance. If you're telling me that would not work. If you're telling me that the drill rap will have me do a violent act, but the positive rap will have me invest my money, I don't agree. That's all. If you change the narrative and that's coming out.
But Smith, I think we're trying to talk about what is causing these sort of financial woes in the Black community. And like music aside, like there's
conversation, the lack of conversation, the lack of knowledge, not knowing.
But is it all? But
nobody's bringing that to the table. I got school students who say, "Yo, we're not taught about certain things. We're not taught about."
But why are we focusing on young adolescents? Like, what about? Because
Because I focus on young adolescents because niggas my age is doing something different, or I ain't rocking with you. I'm 46 years old. Like,
and I get you, but I think because
I talk from perspectives that I know and I can talk about.
But this study, going back to the article that earlier that I mentioned was a survey that was done in 2019 that was accounting for families. Usually, a lot of times when you talk about brokerage accounts, you got to be of 18 years or older, and there's an issue there of 2019. So, like, if you're someone who's in their mid 20s now, what is the issue outside of maybe to what Black Zeus pointed out, income disparity issue? But what is your issue in regards of an entry point into the market? Because what I'm struggling with is this sort of, we need to have this sort of continuous conversation. Like, the stock market has always been around. Like, and you might be right. I just had a different lens as a child. My mom, she's financially illiterate. She didn't teach me jack shit. So, like, for me, I grew up in poverty. And the one thing I knew growing up was I don't want to taste this shit in my adulthood at all.
You see what you got highlighted there? Read that first sentence that you got highlighted.
You read it. You read it. You can see it.
The first sentence says, for the people that's paying attention here, right? The first sentence says only 34% of Black American households own equity investments as compared with 61% of white families. I'm going to read that back again. Only 34% of Black American households own equity investments as compared with 61% of white families. I'm going to read that one more time. Only 34% of Black American households own equity investments as compared with 61% of white families. So
okay, what's the point?
We ain't even talking about a Black family here, bruh. Because what does the Black family have? So you talk about the 61%, but if I don't have two parents in here and I only have one parent, and that's the 34%. Let's talk about this. It's saying Black American households as opposed to white families, not white American households. Do you understand? Do you understand why we got to read into what we're reading into?
Okay, so you're talking about the semantics of the words of Black families.
I'm trying to show you that, and generally in a white family, you're going to have a mother and a father and some kids. In a Black household, you might have a mother and a kid, or a mother and 3 kids, or a mother and grandmother and some other.
But so what's stopping the mother to be invested?
What's stopping the mother? Maybe she doesn't know, bro. Like, we still keep
but in 2019, this is the survey, Smith. This is 2019. 34. Yo, it's not saying how much wealth you need to have. But hold on, let me finish.
Mother, you asked me a question, and I'm trying to give you an answer. This single mother, who, as we say, is possibly on one of these, what do you call it? We ain't going to even say she on welfare, but she is about to sign
government assistance program.
But she got $350. Yeah. At the end of the day, does she know enough to be able to do what we're talking about?
No.
Just assuming that she knows this shit, bruh.
Yo, if y'all see them parents who come and pick
that's what I'm talking about.
Yo, these are niggas who's not sitting there reading about the stock market or even interested in it.
Yeah, like
now whose fault is that? That's their fault.
I know it's their fault, but I'm saying
hey, that's what thank you, Henry. That's what it boils down. Thank you, Henry. That's it.
But listen, in the same breath, and then I'm gonna let whoever's saying, can they say their point, say it. Like, I get that that's their fault. But it's a lot easier to be told something. Like, I would be saying it's their fault if we're educating them and saying, oh, this is what you need to be invested in, as opposed to them having to go get it on their own. To Smith's point, the white families are being told this. This is how you do it. This is what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot easier. And I get that everybody's different. But if somebody's telling me exactly how to be successful, that's a lot easier than me having to go figure it out on my own. Not and even saying that. Go ahead. That's not saying that I'm automatically going to be successful, but it's like, yo, here's the blueprint. This is what I did. And if it's something as simple as investing in the stock market, that's like a guaranteed win.
Yo, all right. Again, let's stick to this survey time. Go ahead. And I want to say something to this.
Here's the bottom line. Yes, it's easier for somebody to cook for you. Yes, it's easier for some Uber Eats to deliver. But if you hungry enough, you'll get the fuck off your ass and go cook.
Thank you, man.
But the simple fact that more
too hungry if
No,
you're not
but
going to take the steps or take any type of accountability on your own.
And there's
the whole
no
thing is, if
denying
you brought
that.
this child into this world and you give a fuck about this kid and you want better for them, you will do everything possible. You will learn. You will look information. This is 2000 something where
So you don't
everybody
think
got a
there's any correlation?
$1,000 iPhone.
So
where
you
they
don't
can
think that there's
Google or Alexa any goddamn thing.
So you don't think there's any correlation that the white families who are just telling their offspring, this is what you have to do. You don't think there's a correlation that more of them, that 61% of the households are doing this?
There's 41% that's not.
40, yeah, there's like 40.
Whatever
30,
percentage, there's a higher
there's roughly
percentage
40% that's not. Right?
No, so
There's a higher
there's
percentage doing it and not doing it. though.
Hold on.
no correlation. That is what you're saying.
The 41% that's not, all right, is larger than the 34% of black people that are invested, right? So now, that being said, do you feel bad for that 40% of white people that are not invested? No, you don't, because that it's up to them. It's their responsibility. The same fucking shit goes the other way around.
No, exactly.
The other way around is like
you have people
66%,
telling them.
though.
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and the other way is
around, the people are
6%
telling
of black
them.
Americans not doing
Dog,
it.
this is what I'm struggling with again. This survey is from 2019. We're not talking about 1991. We're not talking about 1989. We're not talking about any point from between. But Cal, let me get this out. But this is what I'm saying. Let me get this out, because that first sentence is just simply saying people who are just invested in the market. It's not going into how much you need to be invested in the market. It's just simply pointing out how many people just are strictly invested into the market. Since Smith wanted to repeat it 3 times, that's what I got from that sentence. Just simply invested. It's from 2019. What I am struggling. Let me finish, bro. What I am struggling with is in 2019, what the fuck are you consuming as an adult where you can't be invested in something?
You said, what are you consuming?
Yeah, what are you consuming as an adult? Let's leave the kids aside. I'm talking about the adults in the black community.
Content.
What content? What content?
Bullshit.
Okay, then there's the accountability issue.
Listen, I didn't listen. I think you're missing a part. You understand?
No, I get what you're saying, the whole teaching and influence, and I get that. But what I'm saying is it's 20. This
is thinking, but if you don't change this,
bruh,
all of this is just talk.
This is the problem but this is a greater problem. All right. All I'm saying is
the people got to change the way they think. Like, what are you talking about?
But it's 20. Yo, the problem I'm seeing though is 2019, bro. Yo, it's 2022. So what's the difference in this? Did this change? Because I know a lot of people that have invested in the last, and it could be. I'm just going based on what
years, and they wasn't investing prior to.
Okay, and when that update and when that survey and that study is done, and they release that story, I will do an update. I am just But dog, I'm just going off of the news that was published this week, and the thing is, it takes time to collect these studies and survey. So as of we just doing a story off of a 2019 survey.
I get that. And in the 2019 survey of these black households, how many of these black women or in these black households had mothers that were old enough to have an understanding? Because there's a whole lot of shit that goes on with this. It's not just, why don't they fucking invest? They should know better. How many of these girls were children still, having babies, and don't have a fucking understanding at all? And I'm saying, you got to acknowledge that part. I'm a teacher. I got to acknowledge that shit, bro. I'm sorry. And I'm going to always acknowledge that shit. Because everybody is not as perceptive as fucking Cash was at 7 years old.
So let me ask you a question. Do you believe that philosophy goes straight across the board, whether you're black, white, Asian, Spanish, whatever the case is?
Well, I believe what philosophy?
If the philosophy that, if you were a teenage single mother and no one told you what to do, then you're not responsible for the direction of your life.
That's not what I said.
No, but
he's just posing a question. He's not saying what you said. He's posing a question. He's
I'm
posing
posing
a question, Smith. He's
So
not saying what you're saying.
what I'm saying is, if you were a teenage mother, regardless of what your race is, regardless of what your economic status was, and you became a teenage mother, and no one told you, to take care of this child, invest into the future of this child, this, that, and the other, that because you did not have that knowledge, because you did not have that knowledge, and because you were a teenage mother, you are relinquished of responsibility. I'm asking you that. I'm not telling you. I'm not saying that's what you're saying. I'm asking you.
I relinquish.
Are you relinquished of responsibility?
I relinquish my responsibility and I leave the child at the firehouse. What are you asking?
No. I'm asking you.
And I'm giving my answer. And I'm giving you my answer as a teenage girl.
No, I'm asking you as not the teenage girl. I'm asking you.
You said I'm a teenage girl. I'm trying to figure out what you're going with that.
Listen to the question. I have 10 female teenage girls.
Okay, question's changing.
I'm trying to give you a little bit more detail. Okay, 10 female women. All right. Well, yeah, female women, whatever.
Try to answer, and then we got to transition into the book, fellas.
They all have different economic status. Doesn't matter. They're all poor. The only difference between all these girls is that they're a mix of black, white, Spanish, Asian, this, that, and the other. Now, down the line, all their children end up poor because they didn't know any better. Do you think that they do not have a responsibility, that they're relinquished a responsibility for decisions that they made?
Do I think that they're responsible for their kids ending up poor? Is that your question? No, I don't think they're responsible for that.
Okay.
All right.